The photograph sits face down on the cedar table, a stack of memories folded into cardboard corners. You pick it up by the edge, careful not to disturb the precise arrangement of small items, a concert ticket stub from a city you haven't thought about in years, and a dried leaf pressed flat against a faded Polaroid. It is the weight of objects that seems most misleading, suggesting permanence where only chance has operated. We spend our lives constructing narratives of self-continuity. We assume that the person who sat at this table today, the one making these recollections, is fundamentally tethered to the individual whose portrait lies in the stack below. We believe in a linear progression: I was then, therefore I am now. But how reliable is that assumption? If the self is merely a continuous story told over time, what happens when the telling falters? What if the self we inhabit today is already an artifact of decisions made by someone else, someone who has not yet been born to us? The radical notion is this: your future self is fundamentally a stranger. To understand this dislocation, it helps to return to the concept of consciousness as pure time. Augustine showed that memory and expectation are what stitch together our sense of continuity. We use past moments like evidence for present identity. But philosophy often struggles with the sheer gap between the is and the will be. Nietzsche suggested that the future self is an imagined weight, a moral imperative we attach to ourselves, a burden of potentiality. This framework forces us to view personal history not as a sturdy trunk, but as a collection of disconnected moments, each requiring continuous re-authentication. We treat time like a river with banks holding our consistent identity. In reality, the self floats down through successive and wildly different currents. This difficulty deepens when we consider the radical freedom that Sartre articulated. Existence precedes essence means there is no blueprint for who we are. Every moment demands construction, every choice acts as an ontological commitment to a version of self that did not exist 5 minutes prior. The I that makes today's decision cannot account for the moral calculus or emotional landscape of the I that made the same decision last year. We are always negotiating with ghosts who represent our potential selves, and worse, strangers who have already acted in our name. This suggests a persistent gap between intention and outcome, between the narrative we tell ourselves and the person we actually become when left to the unforgiving arithmetic of consequence. The self is thus less an integrated core substance and more a momentary consensus agreement. Consider the cumulative effect of small, unrehearsed decisions: what book you read late at night, who you speak to on a rainy Tuesday, which path you take for 10 extra minutes. Each micro-choice is not just an action, it is an act of self-revision, a minor severance from the person you were moments ago. The you who will exist after decades is not the logical summation of these small deviations. It is perhaps an emergent structure, built by forces entirely outside your current sphere of awareness, a kind of historical contingency that only recognizes certain patterns and discards others. Look again at the photograph. You turn it over slowly, finally revealing the back. There are no inscribed dates or sentimental notes, just a blank expanse of cardboard. The memory resides not in the object, but in the act of retrieval. And what we retrieve is always filtered through the lens of present knowing, making past versions of